What do you think about this? I think it's nice. Kind of makes the whole shot feel a little bit more three-dimensional, you know? I don't know. What about this one? That's pretty good. Kind of fits the theme. What about this? Ooh. Yeah, no, that's really good. What about this one? Oh, yeah, no, that won't be distracting at all. All right, we'll stick with this one for now. I don't know. Welcome back to Reacteria. This time, we're going to do something a little bit different. Rather than watching a short video full of bad creationist arguments, we're going to be watching a whole flippin' movie full of bad creationist arguments. Today, we're going to be watching Gramps Goes to College, a movie written by, produced by, and starring Donald James Parker. Written by, produced by, and starring. I'd like you to keep that in mind as we go forward. This movie has been recommended to me several times, and with a whopping 1.7 stars on IMDb and no rating whatsoever on Rotten Tomatoes, I know it's gotta be good. But before we get started, you know I gotta thank my patrons on Patreon. They are, statistically speaking, the coolest people on the entire planet, and I want to thank the sponsor of today's video, NordVPN. It's NordVPN's birthday, and to celebrate, they're offering a huge discount off of a 2-year plan, plus an additional bonus gift. If you sign up now, you can get at least 4 additional months or up to an entire year of Nord's world-class VPN service absolutely free. And all you have to do to get started is go to nordvpn.com/ValkyLabs, or just use the link in the description below. Nord protects you from online threats and lets you use secure internet anywhere in the world. And with its ultra-fast connections with over 5,400 servers in 59 different countries, you'll never have to sacrifice speed for security. Not to mention the fact that you can use NordVPN to trick online streaming services into giving you access to content that otherwise wouldn't be available in your region. So help Nord celebrate its birthday and take control of your internet privacy today by going to nordvpn.com/ValkyLabs. Thanks so much to Nord for sponsoring this video. Now grab your popcorn, let's learn about creationism. The movie opens with the titular hero, Gramps, otherwise known as Ty Bounds, working out with his friend. The very first lines of the film reveal that Ty has just retired. But as a self-proclaimed workaholic, he doesn't see this as an opportunity to stop working, but rather as an opportunity to work on something that he wants to, rather than something that he has to.
You know, workaholics never retire, Ted. They just switch to something they want to work on instead of something they have to.
And at this point in the film, I 100% identify with the main character. I love this dude. I don't know how to sit still either, even when I'm massively stressed and overwhelmed. All I'm fantasizing about is working on something else that I would rather be working on. So right away, this dude says something that really resonates with me, and I love that. And then he ruins it.
What exactly do you want to work on?
Well, now that I don't need to make a living, I'm free full-time to work on what God wants me to do.
Come on, Ty, we could have been friends. So Ty decides that he's being called upon to go back to college.
I'm not going to go for another degree, just take some courses.
Remember that, because that will change later. He also says that he specifically wants to go to a university in Tennessee to be closer to his estranged daughter.
Got a daughter down there in Tennessee. I might try it down there, even though she won't even talk to me. At least it'll give me a little sample of what life's like for her down there.
I'm just going to go and spoil this right now. That is the last time that you will ever hear about that. At no point throughout the rest of this film does this guy ever even mention this daughter ever again. We don't see her. He doesn't reach out to her. There's no relationship building. She never even comes up. I have no idea why they took the time to put that line in this movie, because the subplot starts and ends right there. And then Ty's gym buddy asks him why he wants to go back to college, and Ty lays out the entire plot of the movie in one long meandering line.
You know, the majority of those kids don't realize, the majority of their parents don't even realize, those kids are being brainwashed by liberal, secular humanist professors who use their power over the mighty GPA and their influence over developing young minds. But I know that I can at least touch a few lives if I stand up and speak the truth in love. And maybe, just maybe, someone's going to grasp the concept that there really is a devil and he is working overtime to deceive us into all manners of destructive beliefs and behaviors.
I love this part, not only because it's just so heavy-handed and strange, but also because there's a certain point where the guy working out in the background decides that the $8 he's getting paid for the scene just isn't worth it, and so he just stops and sits there. You're never gonna get cast in the next Black Panther movie with that kind of work ethic, Jeffrey, come on! We're then clumsily introduced to a new character named Stephanie, who's at odds with her mom because she won't buy her a new car after she drove drunk and crashed the last one. And it's revealed that the mom is already driving her to and from college and also paying for all of her tuition, and that Stephanie is just super ungrateful. And it's not going to be any surprise what else they reveal about Stephanie.
Didn't you tell us you were a religious geek when you started college?
I was, but those days, they're all a distant memory. I mean, how can Jesus Christ be the Son of God if science proves there is no God?
Exactly.
Yeah, it's not exactly an M. Night Shyamalan style twist. Stephanie also says something really weird in this scene. She says that her dad wouldn't have to keep paying child support if she wasn't in college.
This sucks. I hate it. If I was to quit school, Dad wouldn't have to pay child support anymore.
Which is something that I've never heard of. And then she also says that she's already 21.
It's humiliating. I'm 21 now.
So, like, why is the dad still paying child support in the first place? Like, I've never heard of any situation where somebody's paying child support up to age 21 contingent on whether or not that kid is in college. That's such a weird thing. I wrote to multiple lawyer friends asking about it. I checked the NCSL website. I was convinced that this must be important if they're going to be talking about it like this, and it's such a strange situation, and guess what? It isn't. Just like with Ty's daughter, that never comes up again. She doesn't drop out of school. She doesn't threaten to drop out of school. She never talks about her dad ever past this point. This is just another weird detail that they put in here for no reason, and I don't understand it. We then cut to the front desk of Ty's dorm, and Ty is absolutely flabbergasted to discover that this dorm is co-ed.
Hi, can I help you?
Oh, I hope so. I'm looking for Hickerson Hall. I thought this was it, but this appears to be a girls' dormitory.
Oh, this is Hickerson. It's a co-ed dorm.
Co-ed?
He even ends this interaction by asking the front desk attendant to reassure him that he will have a male roommate.
When I open up this door, 327, I'm not gonna find a female roommate behind it, I hope.
Yeah, if you thought for 1 second that this movie wasn't gonna include all sorts of sexist overtones, why?
So what's today's secret word, Cocky?
Today's secret word is
Sexism.
We then meet another major character, Michaela. She gets walked in by her dad, and this is the conversation that follows.
I wish your mother could share this moment with us.
So we're all very sad to hear about Michaela's mother, until the next line.
Me too, but if she hadn't taken the new job to help me get through school, you wouldn't have to drive me here.
Total emotional roller coaster. Also, that is never mentioned again. This whole scene between Michaela and her dad, they detail out like all of the family dynamics of her and her parents, and not a single bit of it is relevant. We're never going to see this dad after this scene, except for a brief interaction with Ty where Ty promises to pray for Michaela. She's never going to mention her parents. None of this is relevant in any way. There is so much detail added to the backstory of every single character, and it means nothing. It is insane. So Michaela gets checked in, and her roommate is Stephanie, who's her usual charming self.
Oh, hey.
You must be Stephanie. I'm Michaela Morris. I'm a freshman.
That figures. You got a car?
No. Why?
No problem. I'll just have to mesmerize some boy with a nice car.
You don't have a boyfriend?
Honey, I've got lots of them.
Just really driving home just how wicked of an atheist this girl is. Ty then heads up to his room and meets his roommate, Snarf. His name is actually Brad, but I didn't remember that. And I looked it up on IMDb, and it says that this is Rusty Martin playing Brad Hansen as Rusty Martin Jr., and he's credited as Rusty Martin Jr. as well. So I don't know what any of that means. I'm just calling him Snarf. During this conversation, Snarf warns Ty that he better know how to use a computer if he's going to survive college, and Ty assures Snarf that he's had a long career in computer programming.
I think I'll be okay in that area. I was a data processing professional for 30 years as a computer programmer.
I think you'll survive.
Yet another detail that will never come up again. And then we get this brief scene with Stephanie and her friends. I showed a clip of this earlier where Stephanie reveals that she's an atheist. And they all complain about how boring Michaela is because she's a Christian.
I can't believe it. I have Joan the Baptist for a roommate.
And then they all decide that they need to make it their mission to like corrupt Michaela and convert her to atheism as well.
Look at it this way. You have the chance to change a saint into a sinner.
Good point. I'm gonna have to find satisfaction in something this year.
Where is this scene going? In all seriousness, though, that never comes up again either. That's yet another subplot that starts and ends right there. And then, in case you'd forgotten, the movie slaps you in the face with the plot one more time as Ty meets with who I'm assuming is an academic advisor and asks if it's possible for him to get a master's in biology as a creationist.
Well, I believe that God created the universe and everything in it, but I would like to get my master's in biology. I'm not going to go for another degree, just take some courses. But I would like to get my master's in biology.
I told you it would change. Anyway, the advisor replies with this.
I see. Then your chances of being accepted as a graduate student is approximately equivalent to the prospects of a snowball surviving in hell.
Because that's how academics talk. And then he says this.
And that assessment has nothing to do with my age?
Your age is of no concern to us. Your superstitions and your refusal to accept sound science is. Then I suggest you take Biology 100 from Professor Tucker. She'll coax this creationism from you.
Because that's how advisors talk. And then Ty ends the scene with this epic line.
Ironically, the word biology means the study of life. Evolutionists leave out the most important thing about life. In fact, they teach us more about death than they do life.
Because that's how interactions between humans end. From there, we go to Dr. Tucker's infamous biology class. And remember, this is an introductory, freshman-level biology course being taken by the man who just asked to get a master's in biology with no prior biology training on his very first day of college. This is also the first part where it becomes really abundantly clear that they filmed this whole movie inside of a church, as the professor steps up to the clear podium on the large tiered stage at the front of an auditorium which has no desks. And as if not knowing what a college classroom looks like wasn't bad enough, the producer then proves that he doesn't know what happens in a college classroom, because Dr. Tucker starts her very first lecture like this.
I'd like to start this semester with a question. I would like all of you who believe that God created the universe and life as it is to stand up. Yeah, we always have a number of students who cling to the superstition. But by the time you finish my course, almost no one stands to confess this foolishness.
And in case it isn't abundantly clear, that would never happen. That would be absurdly inappropriate for any professor in any college classroom.
Shaping young minds is what I do. It's easier than working with minds that have been filled with a lifetime of superstition, folklore.
Well, I mean, I definitely agree with that part, but that's not the point.
But I fully embrace the challenge of bringing light into your darkness.
Huh. Ditto.
Next, it's time for lunch in this very modern, very active, not at all pieced together by people who use the words college educated as an insult, completely real university cafeteria.
Hi. Hi. Michaela Morris, I'd like to present to you my roommate.
Stephanie immediately takes a liking to Snarf, or at least she pretends to in order to get access to his truck. And you might be thinking that this is a continuation of the subplot from earlier where Stephanie wants to borrow somebody's car. And it is, but it is also the end of that plot, because this never comes up again in any meaningful way. There are a couple of parts where it shows her driving his truck, but that's it. It never affects the plot at all. This action bears no consequences. The entire story arc here was that she wanted to drive somebody's car, and so she did. We're then introduced to one of the main antagonists of the film, Stephanie's ex-boyfriend, who I don't think ever actually got a name in the film. If he did, I didn't care.
You find some new crew to hang out with this year?
Yeah, I've decided to hang out with Homo sapiens this year. The Neanderthal thing was getting a little old.
Neanderthal? Really? Is that a way to speak to an old flame?
That flame went out so totally that there is no evidence that it ever existed.
Your mouth's saying one thing, but your eyes are telling you still want me.
It's too much. It's too much. I'm sorry. It's too much. That was just such a gross line at the end of such an awkward interaction. I had to break the tension somehow. We then get to the movie's second major plot. In fact, this actually gets more overall screen time than the whole evil evolutionist professor thing does, so really, this is more like the main plot of the movie. There's a big intramural championship going on, and the ex-boyfriend is going to be leading his team of jocks to victory. And so in response, Ty decides to start his own team with a few special rules.
We only want to recruit people that love the Lord. You know, I want to name the team Sons of the King.
In that moment, we were all Stephanie. By the way, not even 2 minutes after this, there is exactly one instance when a couple of kids show some interest in joining Ty's team, but then the movie forgets about that subplot as well, and so the only people we ever actually see compete are Ty and Snarf. Also, the ex-boyfriend's team is later revealed to be called the Demons, because this movie has exactly one note, and it is going to play the crap out of it. But don't forget, this film has a job to do, and it's not just tell the story of a terrible old man who doesn't understand college. It's also to spread what Donald James Parker thinks are hard-hitting creationist arguments. Enter the Computer Club.
We're part of the computer club, and we heard you were a computer guy, but also a creationist. How can that be?
So where did the information come from that controls the function of the brain?
This question makes little sense. Brains evolve function along with form.
I must point out that in order for something to evolve, it must exist previously.
This question makes no sense at all. We have plenty of examples of new structures evolving, even new brain structures.
And then you have to ask yourself the question in the first place, how did this organism survive without a brain in order so it could develop a brain later?
Lots of living things don't have brains. There are even lots of animals that don't have brains. There are even lots of animals with nervous systems that don't have brains.
So, what came first? The blood or the brain? Or the lungs?
Literally blood, then brain, then lungs. And there are plenty of animals today that don't have one or all three of those things. None of these questions are hard. There's also this weird scene after Stephanie and Snarf leave where Michaela laments the fact that she wanted to get with Snarf, but Stephanie picked him first, and Ty assures her that they won't be together long because Stephanie is a double-minded woman.
You know, I have a really good feeling about
Snarf.
Stephanie, not so much. A double-minded woman is unstable in all her ways.
And in case there was any doubt in your mind, no. That subplot will never be resolved either. There is one point towards the end of the film when the ex-boyfriend tells Stephanie that Michaela has her eye on her boyfriend, and Stephanie gives Michaela a weird look. And that's it. Stephanie and Snarf stay together throughout the movie. They stay together after the movie. Michaela never makes a move on Snarf. This is just another useless subplot that goes absolutely nowhere. And before we get a chance to move on to the next scene, the movie makes sure to bludgeon you with the message just one more time.
I used to think that universities were supposed to teach us how to think. But I'm starting to realize that they're trying to teach us what to think.
Bingo.
Because when you've been taught to think in terms of dogma, you assume that everybody else only thinks in terms of dogma. So now we're back in Dr. Tucker's class, and Ty asks the most absurd question of the entire movie. And it's very obvious from the way that this scene is set up that this was meant to be the most effective and thought-provoking question of the entire movie. And seeing this much drama built up around something so utterly brainless makes it just 10 times funnier.
I'm sorry, but I'm really having trouble getting a handle on this natural selection. Could you explain its properties to me?
Properties?
Yeah, you know, size, weight, color. What's its chemical composition? Does it matter? Is it energy?
Well, it doesn't have properties. It provides effects that we readily see in the lab or in nature.
So something that has no physical properties whatsoever causes living organisms to mutate?
Some examples of other things which have no physical properties and yet still have very obvious real-world effects would include democracy, justice, evaporation, peer pressure, and paying attention in class. Remember, kids, paying attention in class doesn't have a size or a shape or a color. It isn't matter or energy. But if you do it, you won't ask silly questions like tie bounds. And then we get this scene between Stephanie and Snarf, and I'm just gonna let this play for a second.
Man.
That's how this scene starts. For 35 seconds. And then Stephanie asks Snarf if he wants to go to a party and he says yes. And that takes less time than this whole bit. This scene is mostly them arriving and making weird noises at each other. Why? So that scene ends as soon as it started, and now we're in a meeting between Dr. Tucker and another professor, where she indirectly reminds everybody that Donald James Parker wrote, produced, and stars in this movie.
It's been a while since I've had such a worthy adversary.
What constitutes the qualifications for worthy?
Bold, intelligent.
Handsome?
I guess some women might find him attractive.
Do you?
You're getting personal, Vaughn.
What do you call a male Mary Sue? Then Dr. Tucker's professor friend hits on her, and she replies by saying that his wife wouldn't approve.
Well, you know I'm jealous.
Oh, I'm so sorry that the mutual attraction's not on my end. And besides, I just think your wife might object.
Yeah, whatever.
See, he's okay with cheating because he's an atheist liberal college professor. Just in case that wasn't clear. And now Dr. Tucker meets Ty for coffee, and the conversation is worse than their last one.
Not all scientists and scholars accept that you and I descended from some ape-like creatures, which descended from some lower life forms, which all descended from some one-cell organisms.
Well, those people are in a definite minority.
True. And you and your peers are trying your best to make sure it remains that way, using suppression of freedom of thought. You're a bright gal. I'm pretty sure you get my point. You know, many creationists are also members of Mensa, but you consider them to be morons because they won't accept the gospel of Charles Darwin. If you're right and there is no God, you'll never get that chance to yell, "Yippee! I win! There is no eternal life." Because you'll just be dust.
And then Dr. Tucker invites Ty to her house for a private one-on-one dinner to continue this conversation.
How about I treat you to dinner sometime?
Where would we eat?
My house? Yeah, I think I'd like to make something special.
Yet another thing that this professor does that is wholly inappropriate and should never happen ever. Then we cut to Steph and Snarf at the party, and the ex-boyfriend gets all flustered about the fact that Steph doesn't want him anymore.
I don't need you, Steph. There are plenty of hot girls at this party.
There are 2 women at this party, and you're clearly drinking apple juice. So Snarf goes back to the dorm, not even a little visibly drunk, but because he smells like alcohol, he gets a stern talking to from Ty.
With the sexual revolution in full bloom, Stephanie probably believes that premarital sex is just fine. You know, a pretty woman can entice a man into trouble that oxen couldn't drag him into.
And now it's time for the intramural championships to begin. Did you forget about the intramural championships? Well, buckle up, because we're playing chess. And wouldn't you know it, the guy who wrote, produced, and stars in the movie, and has so far outsmarted every person he's come across, regardless of their level of education, is also a freaking chess grandmaster who easily defeats every opponent and wins the competition for his team.
Checkmate.
What? No way. I was so focused on my offense, I lost track of what you were doing.
It happens.
Good game. Hail to the intramural chess champion.
But the weirdest part of this scene has got to be this conversation.
Aren't you that anti-science guy?
I'm not anti-science. I am anti-BS.
Anti-BS. So you mean to tell me you think science is BS?
No, not if it's practiced in the way it's intended, using a strict application of the scientific method. But much of what passes for science today is misinformation, propaganda, and downright lies.
Really? Evolution in particular? Anything else?
You will never guess what he's about to say. Go ahead and try. What's the weirdest, most off-the-wall thing that a creationist wouldn't believe in? Is it the Big Bang? Is it dinosaurs? Is it vaccines? Go ahead, go to the comments right now and tell me what you think Ty thinks isn't actual science. And if you get it wrong, you have to subscribe. That's the game.
For example, fluoridation of the drinking water. When the government supplies the drinking water, I don't have a choice, and they're basically forcing me to ingest poison. Did you know that our supply of sodium fluoride is now being provided by China?
That's right, it's fluoride in the drinking water. No, you did not get that right. There is no way you guessed that. The government is buying fluoride from China and using it to poison us. That's what that crazy old man just said, and you owe me a subscription. Then there's this brief scene in the cafeteria where Stephanie and her ex-boyfriend get into an argument, and rather than defending her, Snarf physically grabs her face to shut her up.
What do you know about maturity? Why don't you just tell...
Yeah, control word.
What are you doing?
I'm trying to salvage what little dignity you have left.
He then starts giving her a Bible lesson, and she responds like this.
Blessed is the peacemaker fruit.
That.
What is happening in this movie? What was that? Oh yeah, and then Ty wins the 2-mile race. The 60-something-year-old retired computer programmer who's also wicked smart and amazing at chess, he wins the 2-mile foot race against all the 20-something-year-old college athletes. To celebrate, Ty offers everyone milkshakes, but Stephanie declines so that she can stay behind and invite Snarf to go drinking again, and Snarf says no because of the talk that he had with Ty.
The party's tomorrow night, and I kind of want to warm up for it tonight.
Stephanie, I can't go out drinking again. Not after that talk I had with Ty.
This young man is refusing to drink with his girlfriend because he doesn't want to disappoint his elderly college roommate. It's such a weird vibe throughout this entire part of the movie, dude. We're then treated to this scene where Ty goes to Dr. Tucker's house for dinner. This scene made me genuinely uncomfortable. We start off strong with Dr. Tucker saying this.
I do consider males the weaker of the two sexes.
Which I can only assume is what Donald James Parker thinks feminism is. I don't know. Then we make our way into the kitchen where they forgot to take the cross off the wall. Then we leave the kitchen where they forgot to take the sound guy out of the mirror. And then Ty refuses to drink wine because...
I always found it interesting that when food ferments, they throw it away. But with beverages, they put them on a pedestal after fermentation.
So I guess he isn't interested in any other fermented things like pickles or sauerkraut or cheese or yogurt or kombucha, or sourdough bread. Thanks for yet another weird take, Ty. During this part, Dr. Tucker takes off her jacket and then starts making fun of Ty for probably wanting to say grace.
So, are you now going to do that ritual where you tell God what a good father he is for showering you with manna from heaven?
Which is yet another just unreasonably crappy thing for this professor, let alone just this human being to do. And her taking off her jacket has a visible effect on Ty, and so then this happens.
Oh, I'd like to.
Oh, good. Well, You do that, and then I'll start drinking my wine and yours.
Close your eyes. I want to lay a surprise on you.
Okay.
No, but seriously though, it's actually just awful.
Wait, what are you doing? I'm hot.
Do you want me to look at you while we're talking?
Well, of course.
Then you have to cover up your charms. I may be a scout, but a saint, but I want to be, so an ounce of prevention's worth a pound of cure.
This guy can't share a room with a woman. He warns about the dangers of drinking with a woman. He can't even focus on a conversation with a woman when she's wearing a completely appropriate outfit that she could easily wear to work. Like, at what point do you think this guy's gonna realize that he's the problem here, and maybe he should focus on keeping himself under control? Spoiler alert, it's never, because purity culture's insane. And then the date moves to the couch, and of course the topic turns back to evolution. And then this happens.
Have you ever considered that maybe there really is a heaven and a hell, and that people like you are condemning young people to eternal punishment because of your teaching?
Have you ever considered just grabbing me and having some fun?
And I can't even make a joke about that, because then when Ty refuses her advances, she tries to just force herself on him.
Okay, so if you won't take advantage of me, then I am gonna take advantage of you.
Whoa. So Ty leaves, and Dr. Tucker becomes enraged at the fact that any man would have the audacity to turn her down, and so she chugs her wine and then drives drunk around town looking for Ty in order to give him a piece of her mind, which is such a weird and specific and repeated phrase.
I'm gonna give him a piece of my mind. I'm gonna give him a piece of my mind.
That it makes it really hard to discern if this guy just isn't a very good writer and he didn't know any other way to say, I'm gonna tell him off, or I'll show him, or something like that, or if this is a thinly veiled misogynistic code to imply that this woman and her mind are the problem here. I don't know, maybe I'm reading too much into this, but I don't think that I am. So she runs into Professor McCheaterpants and they drive off to find Ty, and then we come to a big moment in the film, which takes place at a party with Snarf and Stephanie. You see, Stephanie has entered into a drinking competition, during which she takes 20 shots of Everclear and then drops dead. And that's not me trying to be funny with this scene. She didn't pass out. She didn't slowly succumb to alcohol poisoning. She took her 20th drink and then just died.
I'm pretty mad. What was she drinking?
That was Everclear, 190 proof.
What? Are you crazy? Someone call 911. Oh my God. She has no vital signs.
What are you saying?
I'm saying she's dead. She had 20 shots in 3 minutes.
Oh man, we gotta get out of here. We can get in trouble.
No. The pre-med student then swiftly doesn't administer CPR, but fortunately, Michaela had found Ty and brought him to the party to help. But before he can, Dr. Tucker shows up to give Ty a piece of her mind, causing Snarf to say,
Why did your teach kids something useful in biology, like how alcohol fries their brain cells even kills people? Yet you waste your time teaching historical fairy tales about evolution.
Because all of these adult college students had no idea that alcohol could be dangerous. Not even the pre-med student who was at the party in the drinking competition. Okay. But don't worry, kids. Michaela prays over Stephanie, and Stephanie miraculously comes back to life to tell us all that she saw hell.
Fire. I saw fire.
Or maybe it was a barbecue. She doesn't go into any more detail than that, so who knows? Maybe she just had a vision of some food that wasn't mayonnaise and that freaked her out. These people don't seem to know what fun is, so it's hard to tell what frightened her. This series of events prompts Dr. Tucker to walk outside and remember the wise words of Ty Bounds, and so she starts asking her professor colleague some of the same questions that Ty had asked her earlier.
Well, how does that emotion fit in with evolution? I mean, that's the part that's never made any sense.
You know, we teach that the universe is comprised of matter and energy.
Can information be considered matter or energy? Evolution is caused by changes in the genes of the organisms that are comprised of information. But where does that information come from that makes those mutations possible?
Come on, you're drunk.
And just like that, Professor Cheatface is the most reasonable person in the movie.
No, not so much. Actually, I think at this moment I am seeing more clearly than I ever have in my life.
Says every drunk person ever. And if you thought that that was the climax of the film and now it's going to be over, you're wrong. There's still 30 minutes left. We then cut to the hospital where Stephanie is recovering, and she goes into the chapel to begin rebuilding a relationship with her mother. During this scene, Stephanie asks her mother,
Mom, do you believe in the devil?
And the mother replies, yes, and...
All your college professors, all the entertainment professionals around you are listening to him and helping to deceive other kids like you.
Stephanie then decides that she's going to stay with Snarf, but this time for Jesus reasons. Jesus, if you will. Then in the next scene, it's revealed that Dr. Tucker is no longer teaching biology.
Professor Tucker is no longer employed by this university. I'll be your temporary instructor until a replacement can be found.
Any clue what happened?
I'm not sure. But I think that maybe she found God Friday night, and either she can't bring herself to teach this junk anymore, or they won't let her.
Or maybe she was fired for aggressively trying to sleep with a student and then driving drunk. The world may never know. And then Ty, who I'll remind you is played by Donald James Parker, who also wrote and produced this entire movie, beats everybody in basketball, including the ex-boyfriend. But the ex-boyfriend isn't giving up that easily, so he hires the only black person in the entire movie to frame Ty for buying alcohol for minors. An obvious lie, which the university immediately believes without doing any investigation, and so Ty is expelled.
Expelled? You know, that's a great title for a movie.
In case you didn't catch that, he's referring to the pseudo-documentary Expelled, which is Ben Stein's movie in which he says that there's a conspiracy within academia to destroy free speech and force out anybody who doesn't believe in evolution, and that the belief in evolution leads to fascism and eugenics, and so is also one of the causes of the Holocaust.
Wow.
It's a deeply gross movie, and I'm not surprised that this guy likes it enough to reference it here. Then Ty delivers this line.
You know, the truth that man was made in God's image must never bow down to that lie that says that man is no more important than any other species.
I have never in my life heard the word species. I've heard the word species, which can be singular or plural. One species of deer, several dozen species of ferns, either one works, but I have never, ever heard the word species. I looked it up, and it is a word. It means money in the form of coins rather than notes. I didn't know that. How interesting. It's not a biological term. And the guy who wrote and produced and stars in a movie about outsmarting all of his biology professors thinks that that's a word to refer to an individual species, and why am I surprised by that? Then it's time for the final competition in the intramurals, which is tennis, which Ty is amazing at, by the way. But because he can't compete himself because he's been expelled, he decides to teach Snarf how to be a world-class tennis champion over the course of a 2.5-minute long montage in which we also see Ty leading Bible studies for old people and playing with puppets and playing Duck, Duck, Goose with little children. It is such a long and awkward sequence, and there's still over 15 minutes left of this movie! Then the ex-boyfriend drops by to gloat about the fact that he got Ty kicked out of school, and so now he's easily gonna win the tennis tournament.
Oh well, guess I'll just waltz on through.
Well, I know from experience that if you do any waltzing, you're going to be stepping on somebody's feet.
Please, I'm the best dancing partner you've ever had.
Oh, please. I'd rather partner with the abominable snowman.
What a weird, all of that. Then we get another montage as Snarf and the ex-boyfriend compete in the tennis tournament, and we keep cutting back to Stephanie and Michaela, making it painfully obvious that they are the only two other people in the room.
Yes! That's a set at 6-4. One down, one to go. Come on!
Snarf. What a crowd! And wouldn't you know it, Snarf beats the ex-boyfriend and wins the championship, and watching this entire movie is worth it for this one part right here.
Come on!
Yes! We did it! Yes! All right, way to go, kiddo!
You go to hell.
You go to heaven. Heaven. Jace, I'm gonna be praying for you.
Don't waste your breath.
Prayer's never a waste. Hey, don't forget your racket.
No second takes, no do-overs. Cut, print, it's going in the movie just like that. The audio cutting out, the badly flubbed line, it was perfect. Also, apparently the ex-boyfriend's name was Jace the whole time. Who knew? That's movie magic right there. So now we're in the final stretch, and it's time to wrap everything up. And the ending begins with Ty, Michaela, and Stephanie all walking out of a room that they were all in together for some reason, and then they just stand outside of that same room and talk together for a really long time. I don't know why they were in that room together. They never explain why they're in that room together. I know the joke that I want to make, but honestly, you can only make that same joke so many times, and it's just not funny anymore. Okay, I'm sorry, that was the last one. During this scene, Michaela gives Ty a cross necklace, and Stephanie gives him a letter from Dr. Tucker confessing that she has renounced her faith in evolution and is now a Christian. Then, after a long and tearful goodbye, the trio walk out of another door into a hallway full of Ty's cheering fans.
What is all this?
It's your fan club.
But can you blame them for cheering? After all, this is Ty Bounds, the 60-something-year-old retired computer programmer and championship athlete and tennis pro and chess master and basketball star and academic whiz who also just happens to be played by the person who wrote and produced this film. I swear, the only thing this guy is more obsessed with than sex is himself. This entire movie is just one of those Reddit stories that totally happened and then everyone started clapping. And that trend continues as we go back to biology class, now sans Ty, and Michaela raises her hand to challenge the new professor.
You guys freak out anytime the name of God is mentioned. What are you so afraid of? The law of biogenesis. Life only comes from life? If that's true, at some point in time, that law had to be broken in order for life to begin.
And then Bobby Bollcut here gets in on the smackdown.
The phenomena of defining gravity is seen on a daily basis. Our textbook teaches that life only originated one time. If it happened once, why didn't it happen multiple times? The idea of life springing up through an encounter of certain molecular elements is as ridiculous as thinking I could shake up a can of Legos and pour them out as a sophisticated building. Well, let me quote Fred Hoyle, the man who perhaps drummed up the phrase Big Bang Theory. He said the chance of life generating itself from non-living matter was about like the chance of a tornado going through a junkyard and reassembling a Boeing jet.
I have no idea if Fred Hoyle actually said that, but it is important to point out that while he did coin the term Big Bang, he did so in order to mock the idea of the Big Bang, because he thought the universe was eternal and had no beginning. So not only is this quote mining, it's like extra double silly quote mining.
Hi, I'm Bobby. I want to thank you for standing up and speaking out today. It gave me the courage to do the same.
Ty was always there to speak. Now he's not. Somebody has to carry the torch.
Amen. Hey, maybe sometime we could grab a lemonade or something and talk about carrying the torch?
Be honest. Do you think Ty called his the torch? But the movie isn't quite done yet, because apparently Donald James Parker had already mined a bunch of other quotes that he didn't get to use, and so we're treated to this middle school recital of all these kids standing up one by one and awkwardly stumbling through these quotes from various scientists who are critical of evolution.
T.N. Tamizian from the Atomic Energy Commission said, "Scientists who go about teaching evolution as a fact of life are great con men."
And this part just keeps going.
Albert Einstein said that science without religion is lame.
And going.
Ernst Chain, Nobel Prize winner of 1945 in medicine, said, "To postulate that the development and survival of the fittest is entirely a consequence..."
And going.
Leo Tolstoy, the famous author, said, "Most men can seldom accept even the simplest and most obvious truth."
And going.
Evolutionist Richard Lewontin said, "It is not that the methods and institutions of science somehow compel us to accept material explanation."
And then finally, we are treated to this totally unnecessary second ending scene where Ty goes back to the gym from the very beginning of the film and meets up with his old friend, and Ty shows him the necklace that Michaela gave him, and then we get the credits. Praise Gilgamesh. Overall, I give this whole movie a Science Teacher Challenge level 1 out of 10. The entire thing is just an arduous and excruciating slog through the writer's masturbatory fantasies about his imaginary oppression and the witty retorts that he has to all the arguments he's having with himself in his head. Over and over, Donald shows that he's never learned anything about evolution or academia. His arguments and questions against evolution are freshman level at best, and he fails to understand that half the point of higher education is to be exposed to new ideas and new worldviews. So the concept that this character would be chastised and ostracized by his university just because he's a creationist is ridiculous. I mean, he would certainly be expected to learn real science if he wanted to get a science degree, but asking big questions and challenging the status quo are major functions of higher education. In fact, if you don't have questions when you're learning something as big as evolution, you're probably not paying well enough attention. Like, I can easily think of over a dozen major ideals that shape who I am as a person that I either gained or discarded or leaned into or tempered down or put down for a minute and then picked up later over the course of my academic career, all because of the exposure to new ideas and the constant challenging of everything that I thought I knew. That is the real treasure that education gives you, and it is genuinely one of the most precious things in my life. And that's why I do this for a living, because this dude's broken understanding of what education is immensely sad and horrifyingly common. Don't do dogma, kids, it'll fry your brain. As far as the movie itself is concerned, personally, I think it would have been a lot better if it had like a Marvel-style stinger, where it's revealed that the ex-boyfriend was actually an engineering student, and that sets up for the sequel, which is all about Ty fighting like an army of robots or something. But that's just me. I had a lot of fun making this video, so let me know in the comments below if you had fun watching it too. I know this wasn't exactly as educational as my usual content, but if enough people liked it, I might do another one again sometime. And with that, I'm Forrest Valkai. Thank you so much for watching, liking, commenting, subscribing, and all the other stuff you do here on YouTube. Please exit through the gift shop on your way out, pick up one of these sweet t-shirts, have an awesome rest of your day, and never stop learning. Bye-bye!
God.